it went from being amputated to you need vascular surgery to wait and see, and then to, okay, you've been here a week and we're going to dismiss you now. And
Okay, so
so
just so that I'm clear, that you went to the doctor and they said that they were going to amputate your toe. You ended up working with Jeff, and then what was the results?
they sent me home after I'd been there a week,
Without
and they said,
amputation, right? You still have your toe?
no amputation, no vascular surgery. I needed a wound nurse to come 3 times a week to change my dressing and stuff. And I was like, this is just unbelievable. I called Jeff and I said, it just dawned on me. This is today is the happiest day I've ever been. I didn't bring Jeff uh, any kind of small thing. I mean, we started with, my mother had died. I lost everything. My uh, husband died. I lost everything else. So I had double grieving. I went to him because I just wanted my smile back. And I said, can you do that? And he said, yeah, I can do that. And so from there, it was like a grieving. It was my sister Terry, there had been a lifelong bullying problem. I mean, 6 decades. I can't count on both hands how many counselors I went to for help. And Jeff is the only one that's been able to clear it up. So we had that was a huge, huge deal, more than most people think, because you usually go through bullying for a time, but I went through it for 60 years. That's a long time because it crushes a lot of things. And then I learned to fight back, and that was even worse. But then we had the amputation on my toe and what's underneath it and part of the foot. And, when they sent me back to the room, I mean, I kind of lost it when they were talking about amputation. And then I sent it back to the room. I went back to the room, and the first thing I thought of was, I've got to call Jeff. And my family would be very supportive, but they're older. We're getting up in age, and my dad's about 90. And yet I knew if he knew, he wouldn't go to sleep till he had straightened it out. So, but I didn't think about calling any of them. I only thought about calling Jeff because I knew Jeff would have answers for me about how to deal with it or something like that. And when I got Jeff on the phone, it was like after midnight, and he took the call, and he just said, I remember him saying to me, do you want this to happen? And I was crying. I was like, no, I don't want it. And he said, okay, well, that's the first thing that we have to know before we go ahead. And so we went ahead, and everything was great. And it wasn't great at first, but it went from being amputated to you need vascular surgery to wait and see, and then to, okay, you've been here a week and we're going to dismiss you now. And
Okay, so
so
just so that I'm clear, that you went to the doctor and they said that they were going to amputate your toe. You ended up working with Jeff, and then what was the results?
they sent me home after I'd been there a week,
Without
and they said,
amputation, right? You still have your toe?
no amputation, no vascular surgery. I needed a wound nurse to come 3 times a week to change my dressing and stuff. And I was like, this is just unbelievable that I went in there for that. And a lot of it was, at one point, Jeff said, okay, well, I know you're a Christian faith. Let's just pray about it. And if you don't want it, let's just, believe that we're now asking for healing. And so when I went in, they were like, no hope. And when I left, uh, they were like, okay, all we need to do is give you medicine and send you home. You've been here and you've been just laying here, and we thought we were doing amputation. Then that went away. We went vascular, and all of it just went away. It just localized. They took care of it, and it all just left. And so I went home with it was completely clear. And then I just had to do what the doctor said. And 3 months into that, I had to go back to the doctor, and I was expecting really good news. And what I got was that my other foot had something in the middle of it. And they said, he said, if we don't watch this, you'll have to amputate this whole foot. So I was, again, I came home and called Jeff because I knew that's who would take me through this. And so, you know what? A lot of it was challenging because my diabetes came in and I hadn't completely let go of that. I had partially, but Jeff just laid some things on the line. He said, if you don't let go of the sugar, you're not going to heal no matter what we do. He said, you have to do your part. I can only do my part, but you're responsible for your part. So we went through 2 amputations there. We had gone through the Terry issue. We went through the grieving issue. And then we went through the pain issue, which this was amazing because I had had this pain pretty much since my late teens. And it just wasn't a big deal. But as I got older, it became a big deal. And I was miserable. I was taking 4 10-milligram pills of hydrocodone a day. That's a lot of pain. And so when I went to Jeff, he said, well, do you want to get rid of it? And I was like, of course I want to get rid of it. And so he took me through, and then he taught me how to move the pain. So I can actually, if something happens that I'm in pain, I sit down and I can just move it. And 5 minutes later, I get up and there's no pain and I move on. And let me tell you, moving pain is the best thing in the world. That was the coolest lesson. There were a lot of tools that Jeff gave me that were very effective and still are. I still use them. I use them. I don't call Jeff every time for them because I've learned just to use them. But moving pain was the biggest thing. And I don't have that much pain, but when I do, I mean, I don't take any of the pills. I don't take any of them. So, that was a big deal. And then in October 2nd, I called Jeff and I said, it just dawned on me, today is the happiest day I've ever been. And I said, having gone to you for all these things, particularly the pain, because I didn't know what was more important, the pain or being happy. So we dealt with the pain first. But the thing is, if we hadn't been able to deal with all these big issues, I could not have said a happiest day in my life. I could have said happy, but there's still these things I have to deal with. Nobody's ever been able to move that six decade of problem of bullying and stuff. So it was pretty amazing that Jeff could, and I didn't have anything that stood between me and the happiest day of my life. And I still don't. That's in my day like concrete. And things only get so far because I'm not willing to give up the happiest day. I mean, you know what? 62, and I had the happiest day I've ever had in my life. I had my father who he's a man, he's just typical, and yet he noticed how happy I was. And so, I mean, that's kind of puts you on cloud nine. But had Jeff not dealt with all that stuff, because when I went to the doctor for diabetes, I asked him a few things, and he said, "Well, Marsha, you've never asked me that. You've never been interested at all in your diabetes, so I just have to kind of manage you. And every time I see you, I'm surprised that you make your appointment and I'm not seeing you in the hospital for it." And I thought, oh my gosh. And he said, "I knew that you or Carl was going to die from this. I just didn't know who would go first." He said, "So your husband died last September. And I'm going to tell you before I do this, I'll tell you, I'll go into all this with you, but um, you're like my worst patient. You are my worst diabetic patient." And he said, "So I didn't spend the time on you that I need to spend." But he goes, "I will." So I went back 3 months later for them to do my 3 month blood test. It's called an A1C, I think. And he was out of town, so another doctor took it, and it had gone down 3 points, which a half a point or a point is great. 3 points is not just amazing; it's kind of beyond the charts. And when I saw him, he left the room and said, "I'll be right back," because he wanted to double check it with his associate. And he said, "Yeah, this is accurate." And he said, "Marsha, if we can get you down one more point, you're actually in the running for my best patient." And that comes from when Jeff worked with me and worked with me. And the thing is, the deal was I had to be honest with Jeff. Jeff was honest with me. And so he had helped me really let go some of the sugar and some of the stuff that was driving up my sugar. And I, I'm the one that went to him. Jeff coaches the way Jeff lives, to get up and to be your best self that you can be. And that's what he teaches, and that's what he coaches. And I don't know a lot of coaches that can teach the way they live. They can teach wherever you are, but it's not transparent to how they live. But Jeff's heart is in it just with you, and you don't feel alone. And I didn't feel alone when I had Jeff to turn to on this stuff. I didn't feel alone.